I want to introduce the speakers of this session, and I want to start, if you don't mind, Svetlana, I want to start with Ellen, because since I know Ellen, it's many years now. What I know her saying is that libraries transform communities through dialogue. It's been on her professional agenda and personal agenda, I guess, for a lot of time, and her love for libraries in Russia and for librarians from Russia that are actually putting their effort into making this a reality. It's been an inspiration for me to continue my studies. We were colleagues at the University of Illinois, the Graduate School of Library Information Science back then. Now it's an high school in Illinois. Ellen is now an adjunct assistant professor at the School of Information Sciences at Illinois. And together with Svetlana, who's the director for international educational activities in All Russia State Library for Foreign Literature, prepared this workshop together. They're a duo that has been promoting libraries dialogue for in our region in a long time. And I don't think you've been to Romania yet, but this is your first virtual visit in a Romanian structure, let's say, and we cannot wait for you to actually step in Romania and have this conversation, because libraries in Eastern Europe have been learning how to create dialogues and become efficient at doing that. So we look forward to your presentation, to your workshop.
Lovely, thank you, Claudia. Looking forward. We were dreaming of going in person to Romania. I hope it will happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Maybe I will share my screen if everything works. I'm pushing all the right buttons. It's coming up. There we go. And again, if you click twice on the slide, it will become large and easier to read for everyone. As Claudia said, my name is Ellen Knutson, and I'm here with my sister in libraries, Svetlana Gorokhova, to talk about how you do dialogue in libraries and some of the projects that we've been working on together over the years. So trying to change the slide. I pressed the button, nothing happened. I'll try again. This is the problem I've been having, is that it doesn't want to change slides, and I don't know why.
So are you on the slide or on the hop-in now?
On the slide.
Okay.
And
I mean, it's the now. Try it now.
There we go. So
yeah.
more pictures of Svetlana and I. If people noticed in our profile pictures on Hopin, we only showed pictures of us together. And I believe throughout this entire presentation, if there's a picture that has one of us in it, it has both of us in it, because we are partners, and it's hard to be separated. We've been partners for more than 20 years now. As Claudia said, I am an adjunct assistant professor at the University of Illinois in their iSchool, where I teach international librarianship. This semester, I'm also teaching one of the foundation courses, Libraries, Information, and Society, which is still also about building communities and the ways that libraries support that. In addition, and really the main hat that I wear is as a research associate with the Charles F. Kettering Foundation, which is a foundation based in Dayton, Ohio. Though my jobs are connected to Ohio and connected to Illinois, just to keep it confusing, I live in Portland, Oregon, on the far northwest of the United States. So, and so Svetlana, do you want to introduce yourself?
Dear participants, so glad to be here. Really, I think it is an exciting endeavor we're going through. There are so many new forms, new platforms we're using. So welcome everyone. I hope you will enjoy it, not only enjoy talking to us, but also take something practical from this workshop. So my name is Svetlana Gorokhova. I represent here All Russia State Library for Foreign Literature. It's one of the federal institutions of cultures. There are only 9 of them. 9 of us in Russia. It means that each of these libraries are responsible for a certain direction of looking after the whole library system in Russia. And of course, our institution as a Library for Foreign Literature is mostly dealing with international, interregional collaborations, partnerships, and all these kind of things. So that's why I think it is obvious that today we're going to talk about all these aspects, but mostly about how we're talking to our communities, how do we react to the needs of our communities, how it's developing into the projects or practical tools and methodologies, how we share it in between each other. So just to say a few words about the Library for Foreign Literature, we call it a roux domino concept. The matter is that our library is named after Margarita Rudamina, and so we're using her family name, the founder of the library, who is 120 years old this year, is to depict what is happening. Roux, like U, stands for everything Russian. Ino in Russian means something foreign. And in the middle is dom. Dom means house, yeah, home, something safe. So we're just saying that the local heritage is meeting with the global context in a very safe public house, which is the library. So I hope this is something we can talk about today. And thank you for joining us. And Ellen, we want everyone to type in and introduce themselves in the chat, please, because we want to know who is here. And so glad to see everyone. Thank you.
Yes, and thanks already to the folks who have been introducing themselves in chat. As a reminder, this is a workshop, so we're going to be asking you several times to be, typing into chat or hopefully we have some polls that will work out for us. So I'm going to give a little bit of background about some of the projects that I have worked on with the Kettering Foundation, which I've given the larger title of Libraries and Their Publics. And then Svetlana will talk a little bit about the projects in Russia. And then we'll go through a little bit about how you might think about using dialogue in your library. So first, I think it's good to give this frame of democratic practices. And these bubbles are showing up on your screen. And this is at the Kettering Foundation. And why is it going? It was like automatic. Clearly, I put in some do this all by yourself rules to these slides and didn't quite realize that that's what was going to happen. All right, but here we are on the democratic practices slide, which is where we wanted to be. And these are what we call at the Kettering Foundation the 6 democratic practices, which is naming an issue, framing an issue, then making deliberative decisions, identifying resources to organize for action, and collective learning. In this workshop, we're going to focus mostly on the framing an issue and making deliberative decisions. But I wanted to give you a whole picture of that. These aren't like just these neat and tidy little packages, but as part of this bigger set of democratic practices that flow together, that you might go back and forth in between if you're actually working on a community problem. It's not, as you know, everything in life, everything in community work is not neat and clean and tidy. But we'll be talking about what is the difference between the ways that you frame an issue so that it opens up a deliberative dialogue rather than some other kinds of talk that we might do in our communities. So I've been working with libraries in the United States, although in this picture is a joint meeting where a meeting of U.S. librarians who had come to Dayton, Ohio to talk about how they move from informing the public to engaging with their communities. And a group of Russian librarians were there to learn some more about this deliberative dialogue, and we had one joint session together, and then the requisite group photo. If we were all in Bucharest today, we'd also be having a nice group photo. But I just wanted to give, and so we were asking the question about how libraries can build on the public trust that they have while they strengthen their partnerships in addressing community issues. So I just wanted to give one or two little snapshots of what some of the libraries had done. So for instance, our colleagues in Cincinnati, Ohio, at the Public Library of Cincinnati in Hamilton County, we're looking at how the use of a public park that was right at the front door of their library was being used. And as you might imagine, when you're in a city and you have a public space, there's many different kinds of competing issues or people who might be using it. And, you know, there may be conflicts between the people or conflicts between the uses. And so they were looking to how can they bring the community together to talk about, well, what do we want this park to be? And it was the most historic park in the city. In Topeka, Kansas, in the middle of the United States, they were looking at how to build a new mobile, what they called a learn and play bus. So it was for early childhood education and going to parts of the city that didn't have easy access to the library. And what they started out the planning in maybe a very traditional planning fashion with just the librarians and the experts, quote unquote, you know, trying to make their decisions. But then they did this small shift of just having these short, maybe 15-minute concern collecting conversations with parents and caregivers of the children who would be using this resource, about what they were interested in and what they wanted to see happen in it. And it really changed the focus of what they were going to do. Not that the librarian ideas were wrong, but just they didn't have as full a picture as when they got the libraries involved or the parents and caregivers involved. So Svetlana, I'm gonna let you talk a little bit about Russia.
Hello. Yeah, this is a long journey actually. Can I have another slide, my sister, please? Thank you very much. So it was a long journey, really. We started back in 1998. And I mean, if you look at 1998 in Russia, you know, it's just not a long time passed since the Soviet Russia, the Soviet Union has collapsed. Yeah, so the society was completely disintegrated because you need to understand that there were generations completely devoted to the past, yeah, and brought up in the Soviet era. And there was a new generation wanted changes, and there was several segments when, you know, just the country opened up. So actually there was a great need of a conversation being held, yeah, and who could convene this conversation, who would provide a safe place for this conversation. And Ellen mentioned like a public trust. the libraries are enjoying in each society, we believe, because they're neutral, they're free of charge, they're open to everyone, and they're sort of institutions that accept the differences in opinion, in habits, in cultural origin of people. So this is a universal place. So at that time, I think we met with one of the NGOs, which is FDCC, Foundation for Development of Civic Cultures, who was working with the Catherine Foundation. So this foundation, FDCC, was already holding forums, but not in the libraries. And do you know this rule of 7 handshakes? Yeah, like somebody knows somebody, the friends of my friends. So this is how it happened. FDCC came to the library because they realized that the libraries in the regions are the right places for forum campaigns. And then introduced us to the Catherine Foundation. So together we started a project called Library as a Community Center. We announced a competition between regional libraries and picked up like 8 participants, 8 teams, regional teams, and went to the international workshop to exchange the methodologies, to know more about deliberation and weight dialogue and all forms of communication. That was quite a new practice for us at that time. Since then, this project developed rapidly in the country. Of course, it's many years, but also like it's more than 17 regions participating at the moment, and more than 700 forums has been held in the libraries of Russia. And I can even say that probably in Russia, this methodology took its own path. Yes, Ellen, like the best thing is that actually you can use this tool, you can use this instrument and adapt it to your needs. And of course, the libraries and librarians are being so creative with using something which is given to them. So this is so like an inter-regional aspect of the project, but we also need to say about international nature of this project. And Ellen already mentioned a special meeting we had between the libraries of America and Russia. But I also need to mention that we participated, like both library communities were holding forums on the US-Russia relations. Do you remember, Ellen? There was a wonderful time, and we just thought it is so important to dig a little bit deeper into the this process, because there is a big difference. Like in Russia, traditionally, we pay a lot of attention to what is happening outside the country. It's probably a little bit different in the United States. So it was interesting to see what people really think about US-Russia relations. And then we made a research, put up the nice reports, and reported to US-Russia Dartmouth conference, which turned 60 actually, and has been created back in 60s to continue talking while the Cold War restrictions existed. So we still think of Dartmouth as the best, one of the best examples of public diplomacy. So for the libraries to become part of this process was also very important. So all kind of partnerships were forming, and actually US-Russia interaction, library interaction developed into US-Russia library dialogue. And we just had the 4th meeting of the dialogue a couple of days ago, and Ellen and I, of course, were part of that. We're co-chairs of this dialogue. And I mean that it's constantly developing and changing, and we invite everyone who is around the table right now to join us, because we do have things to share, and we can think of something universal. For example, in our country, in my library, we developed a program of professional development, which is called Library as a Community Center, where you go through all the elements of public deliberation in the library. And today we're going to cover it a little bit, but just know we have this program in Russian. If you have somebody who can study in Russian, that's fine. But also I think Ellen probably will think of making something international on the basis of this program, which will have great use. So we're excited. Thank you.
So now we're going to get into a little bit more about what is public deliberation. And as we go along, again, if you have questions, please type them into chat. We don't have to wait to the end for the questions. We can have the dialogue as we go along. Svet, I think this is still for your slides.
Fine. So, I mean, when we just started to talk about public deliberation, of course, the question was, what is public deliberation? We even struggled with the translation of the word into Russian. We're still struggling with that because it's like we call it way dialogue, way discussion, or something like that. But there is no word like deliberation in Russian language. So probably we keep calling it deliberation. So just, you know, like copying it from English language. But the idea is that it's the process when you look at the problem from different sides and just really examine it and think of possible options you need to approach to solve the problem. You don't only need to define these options, but also like to weigh them, to look at them. And we need to understand that before any conclusions are made, you need really to look at these options carefully from all the sides. So when do we use and why do we use deliberation? I already mentioned the characteristics of the library and library space as being neutral, understanding, comfortable for every person, ideally. That should be the space where people speak about their concerns. They can speak out their what is on their hearts, what they keep valuable for themselves. Yeah, they also learn how to listen carefully to others' opinion. That helps them. Actually, the structure of the forum allows them to listen to other people and take it inside, process it, and at the end, actually, perception of the problem is a little bit changing. Not drastically, sometimes drastically, but usually it's a little bit, these tiny movements inside the soul of each person is very, very important. And it's really fascinating to see how it's being transformed in every person. So also public deliberation teaches us how to work together as a team, as a community, how to take into consideration not only your own interests, but also the interests of other people who might be absolutely different from yours.
So I'm going to go through a few slides rather quickly, but this is just to give a sense of how deliberation is a decision-making process. It's a way that people can come to a way of what is the way forward for our community, and whatever issue it is. And so as an example of how this might work, I'm using Sam Kaner's diamond of participatory decision-making. And at this first part, which he labels business as usual, this is where we make many of our decisions all of the time in typical things. And people refrain from taking risks. The ideas get drawn from the familiar options. You know, this is the way we've always done it. This is, you know, why it is. And for some decisions, that actually may be all you need to do. But when you're working with a complex public problem, staying in that comfort zone is likely going to result in decisions that few people are happy with. You may know that in your own communities of times that a decision gets made for the community that, you know, ends up nobody is happy. And far too often voices get shut down too early, or only the most articulate people and most confident people are heard. And many, many good ideas can die simply because they're never heard. So if you move to this more creative space, which we call the divergent zone, so when you start to hear more diverse perspectives and encourage that and support a more a facilitator can create a relaxed atmosphere that people feel free, that they can speak their ideas, speak from their heart, open up these feelings of curiosity and discovery. But then what can happen once you start in this, very good divergent thinking, becomes the difficulty of trying to manage all of those different ideas, right? And the opinions, and so it gets called the groan zone, because it starts to be like, what are we doing? Like, where are we going? Why so many ideas? What is going on? But again, with some patience, perseverance, and tolerance, you can again start to bring those ideas into the convergence zone. And once a group has developed that shared framework of understanding, the things start to congeal, start to converge, you've done a good job. And you start to get some good convergent thinking. And some of the guides that we'll talk about, both that have been published in English and in Russian, have done some of this work for you, in to bring things to go through that process. And then through deliberation, you can get to the closure zone of making the decision. But we are going to talk a little bit too about opening up, so going through that divergent process as well. So if you bear with us, there'll be many many things.
Okay, so this is a lovely table. I think it actually explains a lot of things, because it shows the difference between debate, dialogue, and deliberation. Yeah, because of course the first question people are asking, so what? We always talk, we talk all the time, and we can see debates on the TV, and we are in a dialogue. It's not like we're closed up. Everything is fine. So the difference between deliberation and other forms of communication, you can see it's drawn very clearly. So debate is competing, dialogue is exchanging the information, deliberation is weighing the options, as we mentioned, they are weighing different kind of options. Arguing, discussing, or choosing between, promote opinion in debate, build relationships in dialogue, and make choices in deliberation. I don't think I need to read all of this difference. I hope, Ellen, there will be opportunity for people to use this slideshow afterwards, yeah, so you can look at it more carefully after the conference, and if needed, just to see more into this table. But of course, I would like to pay attention to the last one. So the aim of the debate is to win, or the result is to lose, yeah? Dialogue doesn't require any decision, and deliberation is to find common ground. It doesn't mean immediate action, it doesn't mean immediate decision of the problem, but at least inside the community, you can look at something to see the light, as Ellen mentioned. Yeah? It's very difficult to explain in words, actually. The best way to experience the results of the forum and the process is to be in the forum. And I hope one day you can be in one, so to see this magic, what is happening. Because believe me, it's a rewarding experience. So actually, deliberation is thinking together. Not only talking together, but thinking together. Yeah, and people is using this process to identify multiple approaches to a central issue, to one issue, weigh the cost and consequences of each approach. So we talked that we need to look at it from all the sides to see the pluses and minuses, and even in a tension in between them, between approaches, and even inside each approach. Determine community values. While talking about that, actually community values and what is more valuable for people is springing out. Develop a common ground for collaborative action, and decide on what kind of future the community desires for itself. So this is the main thing to approach.
I'm trying to shift the slide.
That's
Dear
fine.
sister.
And actually, we need to think, why do we need to use deliberation but not debate, dialogue, or any other form of communication or even action? So deliberation is required when there's no, I mean, there is a problem, yeah? So people understand there is a problem, the need to make a decision about this problem. And it's not that clear. It's not a technical problem. Yeah, we're going to talk about it later. It's not an easy task to do. So it's a complicated, a multifaceted problem. So the lack of agreement about what is an issue in itself even might be the problem. So there is a disagreement on the cause of the problem, or the cause is not clear, or there is no definitive or single solution to the problem. But decision needs to be made about what may be done. So that's, these cases we use deliberation. As we already mentioned, no, Ellen, it's not.
I changed it. It's the new one.
Every solution.
Just,
yeah. It just look a little bit the same. Just look at that.
Yes.
Okay. So we already mentioned that every solution involves trade-offs and downsides that involve things held valuable. That means that there are always plus and minus, white and black side of each thing. Yeah, and for us, it's important while you're deliberating over the issue to see this these facets of one and the same thing. The problem is intractable, ongoing, or systematic. This is the sign that we need to use deliberation. People will face moral disagreements in deliberating on the issue. For example, when we started library campaign, forum campaign on ethnic tensions in Russia, yeah, that was very obvious, like moral disagreements. As I said, the society was disintegrated, they sprang out new groups, segments of society related to ethnicities and the type of job or work they're making in the community, all other things. So actually, there was a time that there were a lot of questions, like, and people, even in Moscow, I remember this moment, like in Moscow, there was a kind of opinions or movements to oppress minor ethnicities or just to be disrespectful to that. And when we started to talk about that, we were digging deeper and deeper, and then realized that there should be basic values we are using. Like, I asked myself, yes, I might be unhappy about how people speak foreign language to me. I don't understand what they mean, and it seems disrespectful to me as a woman. But then, do I want them to be killed or beaten or whatever in return for that? I said, no. Yeah, so people, when they start talking about things, weighing things and just deciding for themselves, no, this is not what we want to happen. So we just need to talk more about it and find out what can be done in the community. So I feel comfortable and safe, and people don't suffer, and we understand more of that. So again, simple technical things that needs to be fixed. For example, yeah, there is no light, somebody come and fix the light. Yeah, doesn't require deliberation. But complicated issues that involve multiple actors, community groups, individuals, government, based on values or things valuable to each of the groups. So this is the problems or processes that require a deliberative process.
Right. So this is you know, maybe, you know, Pentti, you asked earlier about how you designate the topics for deliberation. And Svetlana just talked through what were some of the ways that, or types of problems when they're intractable, when they're systemic. So we wanted to get you thinking about, well, what topics do you think in your community might be good for a candidate for deliberation? So hoping that you can start putting that into chat. And I'll also address your other question, Pentia, about do people come to the meetings at the invitation of the library on such occasion? And in this instance, I think with many of the ways of not being articulate, I am sorry. With the library as a community center in Russia, that has been very library focused, so people are invited into the library, and the lovely training program at the Rudamino Academy is been about training the librarians to moderate these forums. In the US, it's been a bit of a mixture of things that are happening in the library or going out of the library to a place where people are gathering around the issue that they want to talk about anyhow. So yeah, so drug use or drug abuse and unemployment, great things. Other ideas that people have about what might be a good candidate? What issues are your community facing? One, when we think about these issues like, drug abuse, unemployment, digital divide, Svetlana had mentioned ethnic tensions as a topic that they had done. Education. How do we educate our children? These are all things that what makes them potentially difficult to reach decisions on is because it's a matter of what we hold valuable. And I'm going to ask that we take a look at an issue that maybe all of us in all of our communities are facing, and that's library service in a time of pandemic, right? There's a lot of decisions that have already been made that will continue to need to be made, and it's not clear, and if the whole community isn't behind the decision, and this community, it could just in some instances be the community of the library staff, right? That it can be difficult for effective and appropriate action to be taken. So when I was doing some work with my students around this very topic, there were a few issues that that really came out. If you were reading in the press and in articles and just hearing what's being talked about on the news, when you're thinking about library service in the time of a pandemic, there are a few things that get called out. So like the free flow of information, privacy issues, justice and / equality for all people, the public health and public safety. So I want us, I hope that this is going to work out for us. This is the part of the presentation where I might have the most technical difficulties. Also, I feel like my internet is not working so well. So give me an an indication if you still hear me, because I think I'm frozen.
Darling, we can see you. And
Okay. My screens are completely frozen, so we'll see what happens if I try. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you to open a new tab and type in this web address, and my Hopin is utterly frozen, so I can't type into the chat myself, or I would. The Poll, EVPOLLEV.com/Alan Knutson 353. On whether or not you find the free flow of information to be an important thing that we need to be considering, somewhat important, or not at all important.
repeat polleverywhere.com, Alan Knutson, and then
I think the technical problems now actually got to also hop in, and she will have to come back. Magda put it in the chat, so let's try to do the assign exercise until Alan comes back, because I'm guessing she will just come back.
Am I back?
Yes, you're back. And we also have the link in the chat because Magdalena posted it there. So participants can respond now if they want to.
Hopefully it's working, because on my, this is a problem with, I feel like it is my computer is too old and tired to do all of these all of these things at once.
So the link works, and the people can respond. I'm not sure if you're able to also see the responses yet.
I'm gonna go somewhere else to maybe make the.
So if you're participating in the chat, let us know if you opened the link and if you responded, until Alan gets to actually see your responses.
Yeah, I participated.
And then the next one, if hopefully it might show up, is whether or not you find the justice and equality to be important. And or individual privacy. I'm sorry, it should be the second one.
I mean, I don't see the second question. I'm not sure if anybody else can see the second question yet.
Here we go. Let me see if I can make it show up.
You can make it show up. Okay. So the trick is for you to know that you can make it. You need to you know.
It's loading. Justice and equality. Did that one, if you were on EV poll EV?
No, it's still the flow of information. Ellen, why shouldn't we do it through chat? Why like people
so many issues. Anyhow,
choose between three. Show the slide. People choose between three. What is the most important?
I am not going to be too worked up on whether or not these polls are going to work in the way that I want them to, because time is short. And the like, again, I am fully convinced that it is I pushed my computer to be trying to do too many things at once, and it's old. So this is the what Ellen is learning in this workshop is that I should buy a new computer. Right.
Good technical decision. Okay.
I'm just gonna try one more tiny thing before I give up wholeheartedly, because it's let's see. Okay, how about this? If you went to, I find individual privacy to be important, not important. And I see the responses coming through. I can't do it. I can't do it fancy through the slideshow. I had to do it in a little bit of an old going through the website. And then justice and equality.
So the question changed now.
Yeah. And then one more, which would be whether or not you find public health and safety to be important. And these things sadly won't show up on my slides the way they were supposed to magically. But if I can see that on the first one, not surprising, a free flow of information, 100% very important. The justice and equality, 100% very important. The public health and safety, 88% very important and 13% somewhat important, but still, you know, an important thing. And I skipped one somewhere, but I'm gonna if this group is like every other group, it also would be as its own
Private. Yeah.
Taken in individually, it would be also very important. But here's where the difficulty comes in, is how do you prioritize? What are the ways that you decide, you know, which is which. So I think I'm going to give you 30 seconds while I navigate myself back to, and also if you are going to your own, going back to that poll EV, because now I'm going to ask you the question on what is your top priority if you think about these 4 values. Which one are you least willing to give up? And now nothing wants to work. Such a problem of an old and tired computer. It feels a little bit like me. Okay, should be there now. Your top priority, just pick one of what is the thing you are least willing to give up. If you're thinking about a library response, or library service in the times of a pandemic. I see responses are coming in. And then the next question, if I can make it happen, would be, which one are you most willing to compromise on?
When you said compromise, can you explain that?
So that if you had to give up some of it, like, I don't want to say that you would say, oh, I don't need any of this at all, but if that is what you would say, that you don't care about this one. But it seemed that because on the first, when we looked at them individually, there was some amount of people who would be willing to, people thought all of these were important. So I don't think there would be one that people would say, I don't need it at all. But which is the one that you might be, yeah, if I give up a little bit of this, I could live with that. So here, I wonder if I can.
If it's a tab on your Chrome, you can just share that tab as a,
Yeah, I'm just gonna try to, as I, do a different, because this is where it gets a bit more interesting.
And I agree with Andres in the chat. Like it's yeah, it started being easy, initially, but now it's hard.
Yeah. So you'll see here. So this is the bottom priority. You see there's some, a majority that would be thinking about individual privacy as something they might give up. Others, free flow of information. But if you look at the previous one of the top priority, that free flow of information and individual privacy for some of us was the thing that we didn't want to give up. Right? So it's that's where the tensions come in. This is why we need to the deliberation, to try and get at, well, what, it seems like an easy issue, and then it turned out that it was much more complicated. And I apologize for my the magic of the slides showing up when I tried to test it in the in Hopin last night, and it seemed to work, but subsequently, it never works when you're live, right? So again, the how we prioritize what it is, and then not just the prioritization, but if we were to go deeper into, well, how are we defining, how are we defining what free flow of information means? How are we defining, justice and equity? These are also places where we might find if we got into that conversation, it's going to get more, there'll be more disagreement. So this is why we need deliberation. And Svetlana is going to take us through how deliberation can be put together, so that when we realize we're wrestling with these big tensions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ellen, and Andres. You mentioned that it's a very hard choice. Usually,
back to you, Svetlana.
Yeah, this is the first sign that this is the problem that needs deliberation. Yeah, because it's very difficult to choose between these options, and so we need to look at them deeper and from each side. So,
and now,
yes,
I can't see anyone or hear anyone.
We can hear you, darling.
I'm not sure if other people.
Okay.
Are going along smoothly.
Okay. All right. So back to practice. What do we need to hold the forum? To hold the forum, first of all, we need to convene the audience. So we need a convener. Then we need to nominate a moderator of the forum. We need to nominate a recorder of the forum. Of course, to hold the forum, we need participants, and we need to use an issue guide. So I'm not sure whether Ellen is able to move to the next slide.
What about Svetlana?
Okay. Can you move to the next slide? Okay, Ellen? No? All right, okay. So, talking about a convener, so actually, this is that might be an institution that convenes the forum. In my country, it's usually a library. The main reason for a convener is just to provide space, to provide like comfortable seating, refreshments, flip charts, and everything necessary for the forum to be held. Invite the participants. Okay, next. Well, right. Okay, no, we lost. Okay, let me try and put. Yes, Claudia, can I try and share my screen? No.
You have them, please.
Can I?
Please.
Okay. But I don't see this function. Where do you
At
find
the
this?
bottom of where the screens are, there's a screen that's cut in.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, this is all right. So just have a look. Yeah, so can you see?
You have to click on the presentation.
That's what I did.
Click on it to make it blue, and then click on share.
Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry, darlings. I've done something wrong.
Yeah, we apologize for this technical.
Sorry. Yeah.
It looks like Russian and U.S. internet connection somehow happens, and I don't know, because in other countries we didn't have these issues. We had people presenting from different countries, and I'm just joking, but
no. Okay, let me try and do it without a presentation. I hope I'll be able to.
I'm back.
I'm back.
So very sorry with all the technical difficulties here.
Yeah.
My computer is
Claudia also said that we have a special intimate connection in between just doing this. Sorry about that, people. So,
okay, where are you, Svet, dear? I totally lost everything.
Yeah, can we go next from the convener? The next slide, please. Do you see Stepanich on the picture? We need the next one, please. So, moderating forum. It's an interesting thing people do, because I find it very contradictory for myself, even because usually the people who are holding public events, especially in the libraries, they're active people, they're full of energy, they're interfering into everything. So this is their charisma. But to be a moderator is a completely different issue. You need to be neutral. You need to help participants to go through their thing and just try and help people to speak out. There are several techniques and several things that you can use as a life hack. You need to remain neutral. You need to practice active listening. You need to encourage the expression of different point of views. The good thing is just to break the ice at the very beginning. Yes, Ellen, usually it's a difficult thing to do. Like, people don't know each other usually. Yeah, they just convene, they sit around in the circle. We usually place them in the circle, and they just don't know where to start. So there are several things you can do. First of all, can be starting video about the problem. Yeah, or another thing you can do when the moderator is just saying, this is a problem we're going to talk today about, and what is your attitude toward it? What is your experience in dealing with this problem? Just making people to tell their stories. So it's very important to create this comfortable atmosphere so people would go further and just tell their stories. And from one story to another, you can sort of like lead the conversation. Of course, the role of the moderator is to manage time, to see so that this discussion, when people start talking, actually they might start talking about all kinds of things. When they feel comfortable, they can be driven to other directions and discussion of other issues. So the role of moderator is to be very mild, but sort of like keeping people on track, that we're here to talk about this. And we can discuss the other things at a different forum or at a different meeting, probably. Yeah, shifting to focus when necessary. Other things which are important that actually there is no one recommendation how you can behave yourself. What is more comfortable for you, or what you find more appropriate in this very audience is also very important. So you can be a referee, just interfere only when it's needed, yeah, and being absolutely invisible. And actually, I think it is the highest mastership of being a moderator. Like, you are not there. It's just like the group is working on itself. But sometimes some situations need more interference, so you can become an interviewer and just ask some questions, so can foster their discussion. Sometimes the group is too, how do you say, homogenic, yeah? Like, not all the opinions or all segments of your community is represented. And that means that you might play the devil's advocate, like, and what do you think about the group of our community or members of our community who would say this and this? Yeah, just you bring in sometimes a provocative opinion, but you know it exists in the community, but not represented right now in the circle. So then people start saying, yes, but this is this and this is that. So it gives additional dimension to the discussion. And of course, the weaver. So this function is needed when you really need to go to several underlayer of the program, not just to name it, yeah, but you need to drag people into a deeper discussion, like Ellen tried to do now with this pause, like And Anders just said, well, it's a very difficult choice, but this is true. This is how actually it should look like, the deliberation process. So this is the moderator, but the recorder, from my point of view, is even more important, because that should be a person that not only listens to what is happening, and this person needs to absorb what's being said, digest it, analyze, and put into one phrase. Yeah. So, and it needs, he or she needs to do it very quickly, because sometimes conversation is just flowing, and the recorder is supposed to nail down all the opinion, at least try to. Yeah. Sometimes the most experienced one, they're just using their own language and using different colors of pens as well, yeah, or markers, because like usually we distinguish between pros and cons or something like that, positive, negative, whatever. So using, if you're not sure what it is, it's the third color. So just to make it easier, and of course, recorder need to assist the moderator with reflections at the end of each, discussing each option. But of course, the forum, you can have the next slide, darling. The forum won't happen if, Ellen, can I have the participants? Yeah, oh, here we are. So any forum won't happen if there is no participants. Yeah, so this is like, oh, we want to have a wonderful forum, but where is the public? How do we convene the public? Yeah, if actually the problem is there and it's obvious, and it's just like community is boiling, and the library is just opening up the space. So this is one scenario. But when you actually when the problem, or the problem is not boiling and not that obvious, how do you convince people? So we usually use the statistics, we make research in the social media to see what the problem is, or we even collect opinions in the library. When people are coming to the library, we just saying, this is what we're going to have. We're going to have a series of public forums. What would be the main concern in the community? This is an interesting approach, because I mean, this balance of naturally striking problems, yeah, like urgent problems, but also like deep problems that probably not that obvious, but actually disintegrating the community and potentially are very, very dangerous for this community. They might not be that obvious. So that's nice if you do some proactive work to identify this problem. It's interesting how, for example, in our case in Russian libraries, these processes are developing because, let's say, in Bryansk region, they're working in the project since 1998. They developed, actually, they became the methodological center for the whole Russian library communities to talking about forums in the library, and then like produce a lot of information and material. So actually, libraries of Russia can apply to the Bryansk region and just say, can you help us to form this or that problem? But in Saratov, when the library started to hold forum campaigns and representatives of local authorities participated, they realized what a powerful instrument it is just to know the public opinion on certain issues. So now they're turning to the library and just saying, we're getting this feedback from the community. We see the problem. We would like to know more about it. People are thinking how it should be solved. So they're actually asking the libraries to become the place of communication between public and authorities. And of course, that leads to decision more weight and more public participated. Put it this way, my English is awful. So how you convince participants differ, but usually you just need to do some research to see what is the problem then, walk through the working groups and focus groups, then to have a test forum and see whether it's really a problem, and then move to the forum campaign. issue guides or issue maps, actually. This is a very interesting tool. I like it very much. Some people don't use it. Some people use it in the forums. But I think it's nice when you're able to give people something when they come to the forum. So different between issue guide and issue map is that map is actually a map where you try to name the problem, then a little description of it, a description of 3 or 4 approaches, pros and cons, tensions between them, and trade-offs. What, like we did today, what you can sacrifice to get the top priority of yours, how other people would feel about that. So all these deliberative practices, they're actually being manifested and recorded in the issue map. And issue guide is a more developed thing. When you support the facts with the statistics or other developing materials. Yes, Ellen, would you like to share things?
Yeah, so I put in the chat the link for where you can find some of these issue guides from the National Issues Forums Institute, which is US based. And I'm starting to type in the address for Svetlana did a much shorter address than what I was trying to type in.
No,
it's a very long one.
It's different because that one is my professional development course. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Link, and that's one I'm going to provide one, Ellen. Yeah. Can you say about the issue guide? Or...
Yeah, and so a thing that these guides are helpful for, as I alluded to earlier in the talk about, when I was going very quickly through that decision-making diamond, that some of the work of the framing has already happened with the, if you have one of these guides where they've laid out an issue in potentially 3 different ways of looking at it, three values that might be in tension with one another, but then even, an approach within itself will have some tensions that need to be brought out. And so both of these that I put up on this slide are about healthcare. But, definitely this notion of, it's that I think it's so important to indicate that it is just a tool, that it isn't, these are the 3 approaches. Because I guarantee in any deliberative dialogue, the group is going to come up with the 4th approach, right? Or the combination, the way that they're going to bring these together, because it's never, such the thing that it's not like voting at the end. You come, oh, well, I want approach 1. That's the one that I like. Even if when you started, you go in thinking, oh, this is the one that's closest to my heart. But then as you go through the deliberation and really start weighing the trade-offs, and I think an important thing that I always try to have people do in the deliberation is to think about the downside of your most favorite choice. Because we're so trained in the way of debate, of like, we need to win, we need to bring people to our side, and so we shouldn't think about the trade-offs of what we would like to have happen. But when we really peel back that onion to get at those trade-offs, that's when I think we come to these more solid judgments on the ways forward. And it's just something that we need more of. I think certainly in the US, we need more of this kind of talk, and I imagine it might be the same in your communities as well. That and the libraries are an excellent platform for these kinds of discussions to be having. We did have a few more slides, but I'm also mindful that we're coming to the last 10 minutes of our time in this workshop. So probably, if it's okay with Svetlana, I'll maybe skip a few. Because we really, we wanted to give you a taste of what this process is, but recognizing that it was just going to be a taste, we flew through many things. When Svetlana and I do this in face-to-face settings, we spend 2.5 days, with the group working through many of these issues, trying to get at, what is it like to frame an issue, picking one and doing the exercises around framing. So I'll just maybe move forward to, we started in the very beginning of this when we were, I gave a quick introduction to just looking at what kind of values around library service in times of pandemic, what I heard in the literature, to list a few things. But then, it would also be just talking through with each other, with friends and family and community members about what concerns you, why are you here, and then trying to sort it into adding more values and, doing the hard work of trying to reduce it into a few approaches. Not that it is that you're coming up with the perfect approaches, but that it's enough to open up that dialogue for that tool, and identifying the different perspectives that are in it, and importantly, what actions and trade-offs can happen, because those, it isn't, the idea isn't that we're having simply a nice conversation, but there may be something that we can do together when it's over. And that's not something that happens after 90 minutes of discussion. That would be more of a longer term community process. And of course, always testing and refining, as Sveta had mentioned in an earlier slide. So with that, we want to be sure that we can answer your questions, hear your reflections, a few pieces of more resources. We did type many of them into the chat already. The one that isn't in there is the Center for Public Deliberation at Colorado State University. I just think that their resources are fantastic. They're not the only place that might have this level of resource, but it's a little bit like Bryansk in terms of how much they've collated, where how many articles are posted on the site. So it's a really good one-stop shop for information for the if you're looking for materials in English. So let us know what your questions are, your reflections on this workshop. Are you just more confused than when you came in? And of course, Svet and I are always available to be in touch over email, and we'll be happy to continue the conversation past this 90 minutes.
We're still waiting for questions. If you have them, please, there's still time to get the answers from Ellen and Svetlana. Mm-hmm. Deliberation is hard to be done in person. Talking about deliberation online, it's difficult for many reasons. Can be technical, but also can be coming from, our resistance to actually engage in this process, knowing that it's long, hard, and sometimes painful. So I really, really appreciate your efforts and continuous efforts into this direction. I really admire this because I know it's hard, painful, and it takes a long time. And I want to connect with the previous session in which we talked about active citizenship in a project that's done in Romania, Ukraine, and Moldova. And, educating citizens to become active citizens, it's a long process. And we kind of concluded that, well, some of the fruits of these efforts that libraries are making now are actually might not be visible for them. So it's just like planting seeds. And I find that any effort done into teaching people how to deliberate, how to move from having a conversation that needs to end with a win to having something that they both parts or all parts agree with. Any step that you take in this direction, it's important and it's helpful and it's healthy. So maybe if you want to share a little bit about what motivates you to keep at it.
Can I say a few words? It's like for us, as I mentioned, back in the 90s, it was a new feeling. And since then, we keep realizing that for people to be able to express their opinion, but not only to express their opinion, express it publicly in trying to do something together is as important as to eat and breathe and drink water. I mean, when you think about this process as a basic need of each human being, so this is easy. And also, I think it's a difficult and painful thing, but also it is very rewarding when you see new connections inside the community established. Like in a very small rural library, we went to talk about the memory of the Second World War. I mean, Russians, it's really a big deal in each family. And there were some feelings like in every village, there is a monument of people who died, And there was some misunderstanding, like the younger generation came and started to paint it, then the administration came and said, who allowed you to paint it? And all this kind of like strange things happening. And the only place they met was in the library. And like the veterans made, and the school children made, and this administration who were not happy about what was happening. And they actually left after 2 hours of discussion, planning to do things together. And I mean, this is things that happen really after every forum. Some of them are not that obvious. Some of them are more obvious. There's always something, this little step toward the better future for everyone. And what else people need, especially a librarian, what else do we need? We need to see, as we're changing the world, each person in its own place is changing the world. And only for you is whether you change it for the better or for the worse. So I think we're changing it for the better. So this is my inspiration. And of course, there's wonderful people around the globe who are doing the same job. So that's really great. Thank you, everyone, for your attention, for your patience with technical issues. I agree, It's not enough time. Online space is not as accommodated as the physical space, not yet.
Yeah, but the learning needs to happen also online. So, I feel like we all made another step in the right direction together. And just a quick question from Jennifer, if maybe Ellen, you want to answer. Have you had any problems with participants during sessions? I mean, this is another workshop topic, I think.
Yes.
But maybe a quick example and, a common mistake that people, like hosts make in a session like this.
I mean, one thing that I will say is every training I have done around training facilitators, this is the first and biggest question and concern that people have: what to do about the difficult person. And it's a real concern. Like, so I don't minimize it at all. But what I think happens once people start to realize that this is a different way of interacting, that that they often moderate themselves. Like they may come in hot, but if you're like, oh, yes, I want to hear what you're saying. We're trying to capture that. We're trying to capture what you're saying in the recording, right? The person writing on the flip chart. We're hearing you. Sometimes that is all that is necessary. Is that then it's Svetlana sometimes will talk about the magic of deliberation, and I think that's one of the magics of it, that people start to behave differently because they're invited into the conversation. Now, as Claudia said, we could have a whole other workshop on then when that isn't enough, what are next steps, and there's there are next steps. There's many things. If you look on any kind of training manuals or guides, that you will find many for free on the internet about facilitation and dealing with the difficult participant. There's certainly lots of tools out there. I just want to say one thing. I know I saw Svet wanting to respond to that too, but I just want to say about this notion of active citizenship. And I think one thing that, even though I said, if you're really trying to work through a community problem, it isn't a one, like doing it in 90 minutes, you're not going to resolve the problem. But one thing that can happen in that 90 minutes is helping people understand what it would be like to be an active citizen, right? Like, so giving this different experience of how things could be happening. And I think that's another one of the magics of deliberation, is that sort of civic education part. Even if at the end of the forum you're not coming to a community decision, but people have felt another way that they could be behaving. Svet, did you want to?
I just want to say a few words. Like, I agree with Ellen. Every practice needs practicing. I mean, democratic practice needs to be a practice. So when you bring people, they practice their ability to be the citizen. If you don't provide these opportunities, so it will die. They go to their kitchen, they talk everything, but they never go out. So this is what we had during the Soviet years. That's why the difficulty was to overcome this disbelief that something can be changed by the citizens. So this is one of the aims. And about behavior of the participants, it's a big thing. Yeah, of course. There is a chart with the rules, and the moderator says, I'm sorry, we're listening to each other. We are not shouting. Please, this is the rules. Please refer to the rules. If not, so there are people that are living in the middle of the farm, and that's fine. That's fine. You need to understand, you don't need to be in haste. You don't need to push people. You don't need to name them. Just you go and say, it's just like, okay. If you don't feel like talking, that's fine. Next time you will. And this is a magic. Love
so
it.
let's leave here with the idea that we need to practice more. Okay. All of us, wherever we are, the practice makes closer to where we want to go. Thank you very much, Svetlana and Ellen. Thank you, everyone who watched us, and keep up the good work. Let's all become better active citizens and better at dialogue with each other.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Be safe and healthy, everyone. Yourself. Bye-bye. Thank you, Claudia.
Bye-bye.